Well, the rand has weakened even further. That's after the currency took a dive last week on the news of that cabinet reshuffle. Our business reporter Motheo Khoaripe joins us now live from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Motheo, 2 hours of trade. How are things looking at the JSE?
Well, it's been 2 hours of trade, as you say, Michelle, but the rand hasn't looked any better. It's at 13 rand 65 now against the dollar. It's down almost 2%. And we're also keeping a look at those financial shares, which normally go a bit weaker when the rand is being battered about. And with me, I've got the Viv Govender, who's the market analyst at Rand Swiss, just to have a look at those numbers and other issues around the reshuffling of the finance minister. Viv, the markets today with the rand actually in the currency going much weaker than last week.
Yes, I mean, initially on Friday we did see the currency weaken to about this level, but at the end of the day at a slightly stronger level in the 40s, 1340 or so, and at one point in time it had been in the 1330s. There is suspicions that there may be some intervention by the Reserve Bank, which will confirm that one way or the other. There's also some belief out there that perhaps the move by the president may have been a bit overdoing his hand and therefore could result in actually being removed, which would be very positive for the currency. In fact, we did do a poll just an informal poll on our Twitter feed at Rand Swiss, and we did see that the majority of people felt that the reason the rand was strong was because of the weakness of the president's hand and the possibility that he might be ousted.
And what knock-on effect are we expecting to see on the banks? Because we know last time when it happened with Nhlanhla Nene, the banks took a beating. So what are we expecting this time around?
It's the same. I mean, the issue coming about here is going to be the ratings downgrades, the possibility of that, the lack of, or the belief that the new cabinet will not be as stringent as the previous finance minister had been with regards to doing things such as preserving our budget deficit, as trying to control spending, etc., and trying to clamp down on irregular expenditure. Those factors are all negative for the ratings of the country, and the banks basically feed off the ratings. The banks are effectively depend on confidence in the economy. If the confidence in the economy goes down, as would be expected, or is basically defined by the ratings agencies downgrading us, we see the banks first of all being downgraded as well, because they obviously would be automatically downgraded because they're in the sovereign. The sovereign goes down, the banks will go down as well as automatically. It makes it harder for them to raise money because of course they have a higher risk profile. It also makes it basically more difficult for them to function in an economy like this here, and that's obviously going to be negative for their prices. Nominally, of course, we might see the rand weaker enough that will support them, but that's not a great thing to see.
What would the ratings agency be looking for? Because S&P, Fitch and Moody's, of course, have South Africa just above junk. And, Fitch being the most dangerous because they've moved to Hong Kong and their regulations, that side, allow for them to give out a downgrade without having spoken to an investor. So they are most likely to give South Africa a downgrade. But what would they be looking for from the finance minister?
Well, on a very basic level, it's like what your bank manager looks for when you come to him and say, basically, can I get a little home loan? It looks at the ability of you to prepay that home loan, your willingness to repay that home loan. You see ability and your willingness comes into place here. And what would matter to you with your home loan is how much money you're bringing in, how much money are you sitting out. Are you planning on basically being more budget conscious, or are you going to be spending a lot more money versus how much you're bringing in? The same thing applies in this country as well for the finance minister. The new finance minister, basically, of course, we don't know his exact profile because he hasn't been a finance minister before, and we don't know his view, but the impression in the market is that Pravin Gordhan was taken out because he was going to be putting more of a stop on some of the mega expenditures out there. I think the most concerning one is the nuclear expenditure, which is huge in terms of the size of the economy. There's been some numbers out there, and we can't verify them exactly, but they're in the region of about R1 trillion in terms of debt that we did to take on to do the nuclear expenditure. To give you an idea, that's about a 50% increase from our current debt load in the country, which is a huge impact in terms of the credit worthiness. So if you go to your bank manager and say, oh, I want to borrow money, and then you say to him, oh, I've also taken out 50% more debt than I had last month. What is he going to do? He's going to say, basically, you're going to be a worse risk, and therefore he'll charge you a higher interest rate.
And the former finance minister, Pravin Gordhan, had gone out to a roadshow in the UK with Mcebisi Jonas. The team looks totally different now with Malusi Gigaba and Sfiso Buthelezi. The only familiar face there will be Andile Fuzile. What key role do you think he'd be playing there? Because he's the man that's been at Treasury for quite some time now, and he's been the strength of the institution as well. So do you think the minister and the deputy minister will look to him to lead the way in those meetings to make sure that South Africa can get a chance of averting a downgrade?
Yeah, look, these aren't exactly the most common jobs in the world. You can be a nurse, a doctor in many hospitals, and you know the job. But the finance minister of a country like South Africa is a very unique kind of job, and you don't really get much training in it unless you've worked at that institution for quite some time, which neither of these individuals have. So, of course, they would rely on the institutional knowledge of the Treasury to order to support them going forward. That being said, however, the way the structure works here is that the bureaucrats take their lead from the politicians in charge, and the politicians will determine the path, and the bureaucrats will determine how they would get there and what the best tactics are in place. So strategy versus perhaps tactics or implementation, logistics. So I would think they would look to him, of course, for the logistics, maybe sometimes tactics. But when it comes to the strategy, I think it definitely does come from the minister and therefore from the presidency as well. I think that's the only reason that we have changed the finance minister and the deputy minister, because they definitely weren't bad at what their job was, in terms of implementing, for instance, policies, or in terms of having tactical issues. If you look at when they came in last year, or about a year or so ago, you did find that basically that the estimation was of downgrades in 2016, which didn't come to fruition as strongly as some had been fearing, and that was due to their capabilities.
And just to cut to the chase here, are you expecting a downgrade?
Look, I mean, the factors in place are as follows. Firstly, I don't think the market basically looks, or the ratings agencies look at these current ministers as favorably as the previous set of ministers. I think that in terms of competence, let alone in terms of the issue of integrity, I think the impression is that they are less able as the people that they're replacing. I think the trend in terms of what this implies is also negative in terms of more spending, things like the nuclear power bill coming into play. I think those factors would be quite negative in terms of the eyes of the ratings agencies, and I therefore think we'd probably, versus Wednesday last week till now, I think the chances of a downgrade have increased.
All right, Michelle, of course, that meeting between the former Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan and Mcebisi Jonas with the new Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba has been postponed, of course, to Tuesday. And, we'll be looking out in the market how that reaction will be coming through.
From the JSE, ENCA business reporter, Motheo Khoaripe.